for yielding back. The chairman has stepped out, and I'm pleased to sit in. And I've got a few questions now, if I might. And I'm going to start by submitting two items for the record. The first is a map that shows the attainment areas or the non-attainment areas in Ohio, areas that would violate the 70 parts per billion standard. And the second item is a letter by Ohio's Lieutenant Governor, Mary Taylor, to EPA Administrator McCarthy. And this letter is from March 2015, in which the Lieutenant Governor expresses serious concerns with the proposed rule to change the National Ambient Air Quality Standard for ground level ozone from 75 parts per billion to a standard in the range of 65 to 70 parts per billion, and ask that the EPA administrator reconsider these burdensome regulations. And as we all know, the EPA has moved forward with their proposal to lower the standard to 70 parts per billion. So, Mr. Holmstead and Mr. Sadredin, how do these stringent ozone standards and regulations discourage economic development? Mr. Holmstead, you can go first.
Well, as I've tried to say, I think the biggest issue in the near term is that it just stops people from building new industrial facilities. And the thing that's especially pernicious about this standard is that it will bring all these rural areas into non-attainment. And the way the Act works, and this is one of the things I just don't think makes any sense, is if you want to build a plant in this rural area where there's no other pollution sources, you can't do it, because the only way you can build that plant is if you pay someone else in that area to reduce their emissions. And so you have these communities that would like to have state-of-the-art, best-controlled plants in their communities to provide jobs and economic opportunity, but you can't do it because the Clean Air Act prevents it because of this new standard.
Mr. Sadredin.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Every time you establish a standard, it essentially establishes a tolerance limit for your region for pollution, above which you simply will be in violation of the standard and the Clean Air Act regulations, which then kicks in very expensive sanctions. In our region, in San Joaquin Valley in California, the background ozone concentration is about 50 to 60 parts per billion. And that is not, on days when Dr. Elena mentioned that, you should not be worried about attainment because those are not the days you violate the standard. We're talking about ground level ozone concentrations on the days when our region exceeds the standard. Just simply the background ozone concentration is about 50 to 60. So when you have that and then you look at the standard of 70 parts per billion, you only have that 10 parts per billion margin that can be tolerated by man-made local air pollution, which means essentially in your area you have no tolerance for growth. You cannot let new businesses coming in. In addition, you have to go after existing businesses to reduce air pollution.
If that's the case where you've got that 10 parts per billion margin, if that's going to stymie growth, is it accurate to say then? Is it safe to say that those areas that are in non-attainment, there is no growth? I mean, they are squelched in terms of being able to grow economically.
Right. The Act, as it's written right now, it requires that if you're in attainment right now, let's say with the existing standard, before you can permit a new facility, you have to make a finding, scientific finding, that the new facility will not cause a violation or contribute to violating a new standard. Mm-hmm. In this case, with that 10 parts per billion margin of error, that's a very tight standard that is quite difficult to meet, and then you need offsets, as Mr. Holmstead mentioned. You don't have credits to be able to bring in facilities in, so it makes it very costly. In California, we're essentially at the position that businesses do not locate in California unless they have to.
Okay. Let me, one of the things that has really spurred America's economic energy boom here over the last few years has been the shale play in eastern and southeastern Ohio. Do you think these more stringent ozone standards undermine the benefits that we've seen in the energy revolution, the energy boom with oil and gas?
Well, for our region, and California in particular, even Southern California, to be able to meet the new standard, we have to ban fossil fuel combustion emissions. That has to happen either through totally eliminating fossil fuel combustion, and I'm not only talking about mobile sources, cars and trucks, we're talking about industrial facilities no longer being able to use natural gas, any kind of fuel in their...
In an area like eastern and southeastern Ohio, where we still get over 60% of our energy from coal, that's a heavy lift for us. My time has expired. I'd like to now go to our colleague, our gentlewoman from Massachusetts, Ms.